Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about domain and range multi-representation. Multi meaning multiple, so we're looking at how to look at domain and range in multiple ways. Okay, this is a handout that you need, so if you don't have it, stop the video, go get it, whether it's at the front or ask Miss Melina, which is me, obviously. Get it, okay? You're not writing this on your own piece of paper. First of all, please put your name on it. That's not just for fun. Write your name, get it, make sure it's in your binder, all that good stuff. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is re-go over what domain and range are. And it's very simple, and you must memorize this, okay? The domain, the main thing you need to know is it is the X value, okay? Domain means X. It is the X value, okay? However, just in case your algebra teacher uses a different word, we also call it the input, okay? Or we also call it the independent variable. I'm just going to put independent. So domain is X, which is the input, which is independent. And then so range is the opposite of all of that. So instead of the X value, range is the Y value. Okay? Instead of the input, it is the output. Just different words your algebra teacher may use to describe it. And instead of independent, it is dependent. All of these things, it's not like a magical trick I can teach you. You just have got to memorize it. We will talk about this all year long. So try to memorize it, okay? Here are some examples. Before we begin any examples, real quick, I just want to make two notes, okay? So somewhere on your paper, put like a little star. I'm going to put a star. When you're writing domain and range, okay, when you're writing it, it needs to go from least to greatest, okay? So it needs to go from least to greatest. And secondly, you do not repeat numbers. So do not repeat. That kind of looks like donut. It's not donut. Do not repeat a number. So when you're writing it out, we go from least to greatest, and we do not repeat any numbers. Okay? So I know this is kind of hard to see on my video. Obviously, this isn't great quality, but you have this handout so you can see. So the first thing, our first example is a table. So go ahead and write a table. Alright, now in a previous video we already learned about equations, so now we're going to do a table. So we have x, y, and we have some numbers here. Okay, some numbers. So we need to figure out what the domain is and what the range is. So you need to know that domain is x, right? So we are going to look at the x values. And basically we're going to write all of these right here. However, remember, we need to go from least to greatest. So if you look here, the smallest number is -1. Yet again, hard to see on my video, but if you look in your handout, it's easier to see. So we do -1 right here. Okay? And if you want, you can like check it off or cross it off or whatever. Like we already did that one. Okay? The next smallest number from least to greatest. Oh, I put -1. Oh my gosh. See? Stupid math teacher. The smallest number is -6. See? How many people do you think already told me I did that wrong? Okay, -6. Fix it. -6. So the smallest number is -6. I didn't see that negative. My bad. Okay. Then the smallest number is -1. So put -1 down here. Okay. So -6, -1. The next smallest one is 1. So I'm gonna put a 1 there. And then it is 3. And then it's 4. So all I've written here are all the x values, but I put them from least to greatest. Your algebra teacher may not have you do that, but on a test, like a C-scope test or an end of course test, you're gonna see it that way. So get in the habit of it. Least to greatest. I apologize about the number 6. We make mistakes. The range, we go from least to greatest as well. I'm gonna go a little faster. The smallest is -8. So -8. Then we do -4. And then out of these numbers, it's 7, then 11, and then 13. Yet again, you don't have to check them off if you don't want to. It's just a way to kind of keep them track. If you're not sure about which one's smaller with the negatives, think of a number line and think of which one's the furthest left. Okay? So that's a table. Pretty simple. The next one we're going to talk about is a graph. Okay? So you have a graph right here. We have some points. And we need to do the domain and the range. So the first thing I want you to do, I'm going to write it down. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to write the points. You could even create a table if you want to, but I'm just going to write out the points. So for example, this point, I do the x's and then the y's, right? So I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go down 2. So that point is 4, and since I go down 2, it's negative 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, down 2. Okay? This one is over 1, and then up 1, 2, 3. So that is 1, 3. Okay? This one, I go over 2, so I know that's negative 2. But then I don't move up or down at all, so it's 0. Then this one, I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, so negative 4. And then I go down 2. Negative 2. So basically, I got to figure out what the points are. Okay? Once you do that, it's the same thing. All the x values are the first. If for some reason you don't know, you should know, but if not, the first one's x and the second one's y. So the first one's the domain, the second one's the range. So look at your x values. Okay, so negative 4, negative 2, 1, and 4. The smallest one is negative 4. So negative 4. Then the next one is negative 2. Then 1. Then 4. So I put them from least to greatest. The range, the same thing. See how I have 2 negative 2's? Yet again, remember, I do not repeat. So I just write negative 2 once. I don't write it twice, because remember, you do not repeat. Alright? Then the next smallest one is 0. And then 3. Okay? So that's a graph. This right here is called a map. We don't really use it too much in Texas, but you will see it on your C-scope tests. It's basically the same thing as this. Okay? So this is the left side is the x side, and the right side is the y side. So yet again, that's your domain, and that's your range. What this means is like, when x is 3, y is negative 1. Or when x is negative 2, y is 0. They just kind of go together. Same thing. Okay? So we're going to write these from least to greatest right here. So the smallest number here is negative 2. So negative 2. Then it is 3. So yet again, kind of hard to see in my video, but you should be good. And then 4. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing for the range. The smallest one here is negative 2. So negative 2. The next smallest one is negative 1. And the next smallest one is 0. So this whole time we're doing least to greatest, we're writing them down, and we did a table, we've done a graph, we've done a map, and we're going to do points for our fourth example. So points. And yet again, we already did this in the calculator with equations, which is what you're mainly going to be doing, but we're just showing you all the different ways. So yet again, a point, if you remember up here, the first one's x, the second one's y. So the first thing is x, the second one is y, right? So I'm going to underline all my x's just to help me keep it straight here. Okay? And I need to put these from least to greatest. So the smallest one is negative 1. So negative 1. Okay? That's that one. If you want to check it off, you can. If not, don't worry about it. The next smallest one is 2. The next smallest one is 4. And then 5. Okay? So I put them from least to greatest. No repeating. So the ones that aren't underlined are y's. And you'll see we have 2 9's here. And then we have a 7 and a negative 2. The smallest one is negative 2. So I put negative 2 here. Okay? The next smallest one is 7. And then you'll see there are 2 9's. I do not repeat, so I just write 1 9. Okay? So, before we go, this is domain and range. We saw a table, we saw a graph, we saw a map, and we saw points. And in a previous video, we've seen equations. So 5 different ways to represent domain and range, and you need to know all of them. Pretty simple, but you just need to understand how to write it down. If you have any questions, let me know.